Would be cool, yes. Anyway, is everyone here?
I think so.
Prot, I'm gonna ask you to mute because your keyboard is very loud.
Yeah, it's fair.
Alright, so let me get the procedure up. Alright, so we are meeting here today to discuss the charges leveled against Quasar by the state of Montroig as represented by Argon Redder. These specific charges are accusations of tampering in elections, in particular attempting to skew the vote of an independence referendum by utilizing alternate accounts. So, Quasar, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right. So, with that, we've already completed the discovery. So, if the prosecution would like to begin with their opening statement, I should mention that the opening statement is generally non-argumentative. You should be just kind of talking about what you intend to argue on and what you hope to explain.
Okay, so we, the people of Montroig, have received very damning evidence that Empress Caterina of Uldarash used her power and influence to attempt a fraudulent outcome for an election, specifically an independence referendum. Although there is no certainty that this plan worked, we fully expect that Quasar be prosecuted for attempted election fraud, as it is obvious that the Empress did everything in her power to change the outcome of an election. By asking for alt accounts to vote in our election, we see how there was an attempt to skew the vote in a specific direction. And under Section 2208 of the May Judiciary Act, we see that this would be defined as voter fraud by the following, and I quote, casting a fraudulent ballot or using deceptive scheme to procure a vote for a person or political party. We, the people, ask the court to examine this case fairly and without bias and bring justice to our great nation if it is proved in this hearing.
All right, then the opening statement from the defense.
Yes, thank you very much. Today, the defense will endeavor to, and hopefully prove, that the burden of proof has not been met, that the evidence that the prosecution have sent are either incomplete, lack context, or not admissible by the courts, and that my client is completely not guilty on all charges.
All right, then we move to the case in chief. So, prosecution may now begin their case in chief. This is where you need to lay out all your evidence, call witnesses, and state your case.
Okay, so first we're going to examine the main piece of evidence that this trial is founded upon, and that is a message by Quasar stating that he would like to get a lot of alt accounts in Montroig just in case for the Indy vote, meaning independence referendum. Now, I think that this is pretty damning in seeing that he openly asked for election fraud in this, so we hope to, I don't know, that's all I got.
Okay.
That's
Sorry,
all I
I
got.
have to keep like opening and closing my phone every time I want to speak. So,
Yes?
sorry, I'm thinking. All right, I'm going to skip the directed verdict.
I have not made my case in chief.
Yes, I know. The directed verdict comes after the prosecution's case in chief, but it's optional, and I'm choosing to skip it. So, the defense may begin their case in chief.
Thank you very much. I call the accused Quasar to the stand.
Hello.
I ask the judge to make my accused swear an oath of telling the truth as defined in the Code of Law.
Very well. Quasar, will you speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
You swear it.
I swear it.
All right. You may continue.
On the 2nd of October 2021, which is when the screenshot was taken.
2nd of August.
Sorry, on the 2nd of August, we were attempted to do election fraud in the independence elections.
I considered it.
Did you actually do election fraud?
No.
You didn't ask people to vote in the elections in a way that would be considered illegal by the law.
I did not ask people to vote in a way that would be considered illegal, no.
Afterwards, did you speak with K9, the one you sent the message to?
I did, yes.
What did you say to him?
I can recount the entire conversation if you'd like.
I think the court would like to hear that.
Very well. So, about an hour after I sent that message, which I don't contest that I did in fact send, I had a private conversation with K9, something which I'm sure he's not going to tell you. In the Auroran High Council Discord, it was just us two. And what we basically went over was, first of all, I asked that he would not go through with this. Because I had changed my mind and I felt guilty about asking him in the first place and I felt bad about it. So I asked him not to go through with it. He then said that he wouldn't, and he didn't have any alts anyway, so he wasn't going to anyway. But I still asked him not to. Then we went on to talk about the referendum generally and what would happen if Montroig did leave. I said that I would obviously want to get a defensive alliance. He was on the fence about it. But ultimately, at this point, it wasn't up to him since he wasn't emperor anymore. It was only about 5-10 minutes, and then we left.
Alright, I have no further questions to the witness. The prosecution may cross-examine the witness before I resume my case in chief.
So, Quasar, why would you said that you were considering making voter fraud happen?
I did consider it, yes.
Why were you considering it?
To give some context, this was right around the time that I was about to propose the High Council vote. The Low Council vote, and I was very nervous that it wouldn't pass. As you know, it had kind of been my baby up until that point, and had been the main thing I was trying to get past. I was very nervous it would fail, and Montroig leaving Uldarash would probably give it enough of a kick that it would never pass. And so I got incredibly nervous, and for just a moment, I did let my nerves get the best of me, and I did request. I had initially gone to K9 over this before changing my mind later on.
And you said that this was in a Discord call, correct?
The Auroran High Council chat, yes.
Chat or VC?
Channel, sorry.
Like channel, like text.
They have a voice channel.
Okay, voice channel. I guess, do you have any real proof that this call actually happened, or are we just gonna have to take your word for it?
We're going to submit proof to suggest that we can show that K9 would be lying about it.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Alright, if I may now resume my case in chief. If you look at the first doc we have sent in the courtroom channel, our first evidence doc, you can see that there are a number of images. The very first two images are Quasar vehemently opposing ideas of voter fraud with K9 and Nikephoros, which are two high-ranking wards. You can see him clearly saying they shouldn't do that and vehemently opposing the idea. This is for the court to consider. Otherwise, I have no further... this was in the first and third... I believe it was the first and third independence elections. You can cross-reference it with the dates, obviously. I have no. Well, I have finished my case in chief.
Very well.
Permission to speak, Your Honor.
Who is asking? I didn't. Who asked to speak? I couldn't
Legal.
see. Oh, right. Go ahead.
So the evidence for your defense comes in the first and third independence referendums, you said, Coco?
Yes.
And the screenshot of Quasar asking for alt accounts happened in the second
Yes.
independence referendum. So the evidence you've provided may state that he wasn't for election fraud at the times of those specific independence referendums,
This
but
is
does
more.
not prove that he wasn't
This is
for
more.
the second.
This is more of a
independence
proof
referendum.
of character. I can hardly see how someone which would be against voter fraud in the first referendum would then be for voter fraud and commit it on the second, and then re-switch to being against voter fraud on the third, given that he benefits from voter fraud in all three cases.
Well, we do have evidence that he was for voter fraud in the second independence referendum.
And we
And
have.
you don't have any evidence submitted saying that he wasn't against it.
Well, we have a witness testimony saying that he was against it, and you also have no evidence to prove he actually did voter fraud. You have simply evidence that says he basically considered it, which he admitted to, and is not a crime. You, however, have no evidence he actually attempted or actually did voter fraud, and I'm still waiting for it.
I wouldn't say that the evidence we have submitted is Quasar considering in voter fraud. I would say it is Quasar directly asking for it.
Well, then
Wouldn't you agree?
I am still waiting for evidence saying that it actually happened. I'm going to ask the judge to stop this back and forth and come back to the actual trial structure.
Yes. I would like to request does anyone have the context around the inflammatory screenshot, like the one where Quasar directly asks for more alternate accounts? Because so
Yes.
far the defendant's evidence is surrounding, is contextually surrounding, as far as I can tell, not that specific quotation.
Alright, if you can see our second docs we submitted in the courtroom, it's a very, very large docs which we just submitted just in case. But if you can go to a specific section that I will give you in a moment when I find it, I believe it was on section 2. Yep, section 2, subsection D. You can see the actual screenshots on the left in section 2, subsection D again, where you can see that there is no message relating to the inflammatory DM. There's no message beforehand or afterwards that relates to it. So basically, the idea is my client sent this message unannounced, and then after that, he went and spoke with K9 on the Auroran VC about it. That's the discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have the full context. Well, the full doesn't exist since the VC discussion was not recorded. But from what we can say, there was no prior context or any context afterwards in the actual DMs.
All right. Well, if we're getting back on track, then I would say it's time for the first rebuttal from the prosecution.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't paying attention. What the fuck's happened? What did you say?
Your rebuttal. You can do a little rebuttal now to the presented evidence.
Oh, to the evidence?
Yeah.
I see. So, the evidence where Quasar said, could we get like a few more alt accounts in the Montreuil just in case for the Indy vote? K9 doesn't look like he responded to that, correct?
Well, he didn't respond in message.
In message? Where did he respond then?
He responded when they had a discussion, him and Quasar, in the Auroran High Council VC.
And do we have any proof of that happening? Or
We have a witness testimony under oath.
witness testimony? All right, well, nothing further, Your Honor.
I would like context for the second screenshot, the one directly next to the first in subsection D. Is Quasar Grungo Brungo?
No, this is a screenshot which is not related to the case. As I said, the second docs is actually a very, very wide collection of evidence we have for the Uldarash crisis, in quotation mark crisis, and I actually put it forth as evidence so I could use specific parts of it if the prosecution, basically bring something up that I may have an answer to that, because I didn't want to come to the trial unprepared, because I know my client is innocent and I'm sure we're gonna make sure he is gonna be found not guilty. So this has no bearing on the case. The only evidence I present to the courts in these docs for now is section 2, subsection D, the first picture.
All right. The placement of the images directly next to each other, and the fact that both of them involve canine, kind of
No
made me
problem.
think that the second one also featured or had Quasar in it. So, if the defense would like to move to their rebuttal, then
Of course. During the prosecution's case in chief and rebuttal, they have said that this specific screenshot that they sent, which is the proof on which the entire case holds, really, they said that this would constitute a bit more than simply intent to actually make fraud. Now, we do not deny there was intent for a short, brief moment, and that this message was sent. What we deny is that there was an actual attempt to make election fraud or election fraud actually happened. For now, I say that the burden of proof has not been met at all, and unless the prosecution finds a witness to testify for them, or maybe other proof, they didn't actually submit any other proof during discovery. So unless they find something maybe in my docs, I would kindly ask the judge for a summary judgment of not guilty, because the burden of proof has not been met.
Legal, if you would like to move to your rebuttal, a rebuttal of the rebuttal.
Can I get a minute or two? I'm looking at something.
Of course, yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, I had to.
Okay, I don't have a rebuttal.
All right. Then I suppose we can move to closing statements. So before I do so, I guess I'd like to take a bit of a summation of the existing evidence, just so I'm certain that I'm on the right page here. So, what we have is the full context of a particular screenshot in which Quasar asked for alternate accounts to vote in this is the second Montreux independence referendum.
Correct.
All right. And Quasar, if you would elaborate again on why you intended to do that.
Sure, no problem. So basically, as I said, this was right around the time period where, in fact, I believe it was literally right around then, I was writing and going to put forward the low council proposition, which was like my entire thing I'd been working towards for like several months at that point. I was very worried that Montreux leaving Uldarash would basically ruin that whole plan. It would ruin my democratization of Uldarash. I got like quite nervous. For context, I believe it was quite late at this point, and I, in a moment of desperation and shall we say weakness, messaged K9 asking for alts in Montreux, but I felt bad about it like almost immediately. I had previously been very against voter fraud in Montreux, and so I talked to him in the Auroran High Council VC. I told him not to do it. He said okay. Then, as you can see from the full context of our messages, it's never brought up again once. He never even responds to it because we already talked about it.
Very well. And then afterwards, you discuss with the Empress, correct? With Nike. Or this is. Hold on. In the second screenshot.
If you're referring
Yeah, that was from the third referendum.
Yes, if you're referring to the evidence the defense had put forward, the first one is from the first referendum, and the third one is from the third referendum.
I can give you the context for that if you'd like.
Please go ahead.
So during the third referendum, Ganef had voted, and in the government channel at the time, I believe Mining Boy and Prot, maybe, were talking about how they didn't think he was a citizen because he didn't have a citizen role. So they told me, and I went to tell Sevens, because Ganef is an Auroran, to tell him to not vote in the elections if he's not a citizen. The context then was that he was a citizen, but his role had been removed because we'd been having issues with a military training, and the only way to let him be able to speak in the VC was to remove his role. I think Fabrak was there, he can back that up. It was a very strange situation. Ganef uses two Discords, one to speak and one to listen, so there was some mess up there. But yeah, I basically went and told Sevens, don't let him vote, he's not a citizen. And this is after I'm being accused of doing voter fraud in the next referendum. I then went and told the Aurorans not to vote and do fraud because I thought he'd tried to do fraud. Although it turns out it had just been a very strange mix-up with the rules.
If the defense would explain the context behind the first screenshot as well.
I am going to let the witness continue.
With me and K9?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so this was during the first referendum. K9 messaged me, anyone in the Discord could vote right that can see it at least. I assumed he was implying that means that any Aurorans in the Discord could vote, to which I specified only citizens if you have the role you can vote. And then he says, my film when the Emperor doesn't have a citizen role. I said, lol, I think I'm going to be mad if they saw that because he wasn't a citizen, and it would be incredibly, be obvious fraud if we, did that, and I didn't want to do that. He's not a citizen. Why would I let him vote? And then I, tried to set his mind at ease, because I assumed he was asking this because he was worried it would succeed, and I said, it's already even anyway, don't worry about it. Because obviously, at the time, we were co-emperors, and we talked quite frequently, so I was just keeping him up to date, because also there was no laws at the time about telling people how the votes were going, and we told people, relatively frequently.
All right. Well, then I think we can move to closing, since that's about it for me, I would say. So the prosecution would like to move to their closing statements.
Yeah. So basically, if the dates that the defense put up matched with the accused evidence that the prosecution has put forward, I would be more inclined to believe that Empress Caterina did not want to commit voter fraud. But because they did not provide any proof that Quasar was not intending on committing voter fraud at a specific date, then I would say that Quasar would be guilty of voter fraud, because voter fraud happens quite frequently in Montreuil. And on that independence referendum, it's safe to say that it also happened, and Quasar probably contributed to that. No, that's pretty much it.
All right, then the defense may deliver their closing arguments.
Dear members of the court, the prosecution has been strong in its use of maybes and possibilities and probabilities. However, it has been particularly weak in their show of evidence. So we do have evidence that my clients intended to commit voter fraud, and we do not deny that for a very brief fraction of time there was an intent to commit voter fraud. However, there was no attempt, nor was there actual voter fraud. And without any evidence backing that up, I'm afraid the prosecution has not met the burden of proof. And therefore, when there is no proof provided by either the prosecution or the defendant, our legal system makes it so that it's the prosecution's job to get the evidence to convict. If we don't have that, by default, my client is not guilty. And I can already tell you, the prosecution did not find the proof that my client committed voter fraud because it does not exist, because my client did not commit voter fraud.
All right, well, if that's it from everyone, then I think we're done here, and I will deliver a verdict soon. Hopefully very soon.
Great. To General.
Hell yeah.
I can unmute now.
Yes, you can. So I'm gonna cut off the recording.
Yeah, go ahead.